Today we'll look at the Beatles VI from 1965. The release date was June 14th, 1965. 11 tracks, 22 songs in mono and stereo for 56 minutes. That's 11 songs in 28 minutes. And of course, they're all produced by the Beatles producer is George Martin, all except for one record. This is interesting. If you look at where these songs come from, of course, this is the Capitol Records compilation, and this is predominantly material that went on the UK versions of Beatles For Sale and Help UK. Okay, 6 of these songs are from Beatles For Sale. That would be Kansas City, Hey, 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 8 Days a Week, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, Words of Love, and What You're Doing. And also Every Little Thing. The Help UK is You Like Me Too Much, Bad Boy, Dizzie Miss Lizzie, and Tell Me What You See. Now, in the United States, Capitol Records, the way they put these records together, a lot of Beatles For Sale went on a Capitol Records CD called Beatles 65, which is one of my favorites. So that one seemed to got the better tracks. And then these Help tracks, Help in the... we'll cover Help next on the next Beatle album review, but I don't want to get too much into it, but it's mainly just a lot of instrumentation and instrumentals. So yeah, you got 6 tracks come from Beatles For Sale, and then 4 from Help UK, and then there's one B-side, which is the B-side to Ticket to Ride is Yes It Is the name of the song. Okay, this album has 4 covers, and then the other 7 songs, 6 are credited to John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and then there's one lone track credited to George Harrison. Okay, the cover is a picture of the guys from left to right: Paul, Ringo, George, and John. Just to let you get a look here. Capitol Records, when they made these, they didn't really go for they weren't going for big time art or design. They here it is, here's the Beatles, and they even got the names of the songs on here. And you know what's interesting? They're not even in the right order. Look at the songs. They're not in the right order. And it says the world's most popular foursome, John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Okay. And that's not the order that they're standing in. The backside has the big Beatles 6, and then you got a black and whites of the guys here. And you got it shows the tracks they play in stereo and then in mono. And you got some other Beatles offerings here from Capitol Records, so they're trying to cross-sell. It sounds like a Beatles album. All these Beatles albums from 64 and 65, they all kind of have a similar feel to it. But let's be real, this is not their best effort or collection of songs. Okay, let's just get into it. Track 1 is Kansas City, Hey, 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 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's a Lieber and Stoller song, who are famous for doing a lot of different things, including Elvis Presley songs. But Little Richard did this, or Richard Penniman is his proper name. But Little Richard did 2 songs by Lieber and Stoller, Kansas City and Hey, 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 and he combined them together. And I listened to the release. What the Beatles did, they just followed Little Richard's lead. It also of note, it's printed improperly. It just says Kansas City, so they never fixed it. But the actual name of the song is Kansas City, Hey, 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 Hey. Okay, the Beatles combined it and the 2 songs, and they shortened it down to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The Little Richard version, I'll do what I did for the last album. I listened to all the covers, the originals, and so I'll give you guys the links so you can go through and listen to them again. The Little Richard version is pretty good. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm not a super fan. I don't have any Little Richard content, but I like the person and everything he represents. It's in the key of C. The Beatles version sounds very, very similar to Little Richard. It's got Paul. Paul's on lead vocals, and he's just doing all the things. It's in the key of C also, so they didn't really change much. It's 129 beats per minute, and it's in 4/4 time. The verse is 12 bars, and Paul comes out strong. Kansas City, coming to get my baby back home. And Paul even does the woo, just like Little Richard does. I mean, he sounds just like him. And the verse is, hey, 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 hey. That's the second part of the song, and it's just 12 bars. You guys know the song. The guitar solo sounds like a country sort of guitar solo from George, like you would hear on the earlier records where they were covering Carl Perkins. But what's different between the Beatles version and the Little Richard version is the Beatles has that guitar solo. The Little Richard version has a saxophone solo, and they don't really sound too similar, but they're doing the same sort of thing. And yeah, so the song arrangement or structure is pretty simple. It's the Kansas City part of the song is just the verse, and the guitar solo. And then it switches into the hey, 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 hey. And that's 4 additional verses, and he's saying bye, 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 bye. But cool track. And inevitably, if you're watching a Kansas City Chiefs football game, they, in America, they'll, especially on Monday Night Football, they'll play that. They'll play that for sure. They always do it as bumper music. Okay, track 2 is 8 Days a Week, 2 minutes and 43 seconds. It's a John Lennon, Paul McCartney tune. Vocal harmonies by John and Paul, but I can hear more of John. So it's almost like his voice is on top of Paul's, but you can hear Paul clearly. George also joins John and Paul in singing the chorus, and you can tell the difference. I mean, you can hear a third voice in there. It's a complex song arrangement. I'll get into that in a moment, but this is the key of D major for 8 days a week, 136 beats per minute, 4/4 time. The verse is 16 bars. Oh, I need your love, babe. Guess you know it's true. I mean, it's a really common jingle that you hear. Everybody's heard this song before, and it's on the Red Album and everything else. The chorus is hold me, love me. That's kind of how the song goes, and that's 8 bars. And then the bridge is another 8 bars of 8 days a week, I love you. That's 8 days a week in a nutshell. It's, I don't think there's a solo in there that... I didn't jot it down, so there must not be one. It's a verse, chorus, bridge. Verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, outro. When the Beatles got more complex in their song writing and arrangement, they like to incorporate verses and bridges, but also a chorus in there. So the chorus, if you know like popular songwriting technique and structure, the verse is telling you the story. The chorus is just emphasizing the emotion of the story. And then the bridge is a hook to get you to the second half of the song, or the third third of the song. A lot of songs, they repeat the bridge. So, it's cool, and it adds for the additional complexity of adding a chorus to the verse and the bridge. Gives an added dimension that you don't have before on a lot of their early content that is coming from the late 50s and early 60s, okay? 8 days a week. Track 3 is You Like Me Too Much, 2 minutes and 34 seconds. It's a George Harrison written song and lead vocals by George. This is a typical Beatles ditty in the AABA style, so it doesn't have that complexity to it. It's in the key of G major at 88 beats per minute. And 4/4 time. By the way, these Beatles songs, they don't like hop around in different keys generally. I mean, I know they like to get fancy in chord structures and but they generally don't have dramatic switches or swings, and they don't like to change the time signature like you hear in a lot of more progressive rock bands or heavy metal or heavy progressive like Iron Maiden or Metallica or something like that. It's just a straight up G major, consistent time signature, 4/4 time. The verse is 16 bars. Though you've gone away this morning, you'll be back again tonight. And then, and the verse continues, and it comes around to, 'cause you like me too much, and I like you. It's a Beatle. I mean, really, it's a boy band song, right? He's singing to the girls. The bridge is 8 bars, and I really do, and it's nice when you believe me if you leave me. Okay, it's a boy band song, and the solo is a guitar solo. It's 12 bars. It's more like I'll describe it as more like a duet where the guitar part of the duet is talking to the piano, almost like guitar, piano, and it does that for 12 bars. The song structure wise, verse, verse, bridge, verse, solo, bridge, verse, outro, so that AABA style is back. And the Beatles like to stick to their formulas, I guess. Track 4 is Bad Boy, 2 minutes and 17 seconds. This is a Larry Williams track. Lead vocals by John Lennon. Now behave yourself. John. By the way, John really likes these Larry Williams songs. I kind of do too. I mean, I like all the Larry Williams songs that the Beatles covered anyway, and there's a bunch of them in the back records. I'll try to get you guys a list, but this isn't my favorite one, but I like it. This song goes back to their Hamburg, Germany days when they were playing multiple sets a night, and it's an AABA form. The Larry Williams version I listened to, honestly, pretty close. It's in the key of F, according to Chordified.com. By the way, for you people that really like getting into the nitty gritty of the songs, Chordified.com is a pretty cool tool if you want to look at it. The Beatles version is in the key of C major. This means that the Beatles really lifted it up like 7 steps, and it makes the song a little bit brighter than Larry's version. But go listen yourself. I'll get you the link. The Beatles version is 135 beats per minute and 4/4 time. The verse starts out, "A bad little kid moved into my neighborhood," and it's pretty extended for a verse. It goes on for 20 bars. The solo is 12 bars, and in this song it sort of operates as the bridge, and that's why I counted this one as an AABA. But it's a verse, guitar solo, verse, outro. Very simple song structure. Bad Boy. John liked these Larry Williams tracks. I do too. Track 5, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, 2 minutes and 33 seconds. It's a Lennon-McCartney tune, lead vocals by John Lennon. It's not his best song. I even muttered weak-ass Paul shit when it started. I was listening to this yesterday out in the other room, and my wife came into the room and said, "That's John singing," and I went... Weak-ass Paul shit is a line that John Lennon said. I think he was talking about Obladi, Oblada or something. Anyway, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. This is another AABA song in that common Beatles format, key of G major, 186 beats per minute, which is fast tempo, 4/4. The verse is 16 bars. I don't want to spoil the party, so I'll go. I would hate my disappointment to show. The bridge is 12 bars. Though tonight she's made me sad, I still love her, and if I find her, I'll be glad I still love her. It's just a total boy band song, and I guess it's a happier content than what you hear on Beatles 65. The solo is 16-bar guitar solo. As I said, this is an AABA structure song, so the arrangement is verse, bridge, verse, guitar solo, bridge, verse. Yeah, it's not a great song. Track 6 is Words of Love, 2 minutes and 10 seconds. It's a Buddy Holly tune, so this is a cover. Lead vocals by John Lennon. He's singing in a very low voice. It's a boring song. I'll post the link to the Buddy Holly Words of Love. I listened to it yesterday. It's in the key of A major. The Beatles version is also in the key of A major, so it's the same key. Can hardly tell the difference between the two other than it's clearly Buddy Holly and versus John Lennon. The song is 122 beats per minute and 4/4 time. In the verse, John Lennon's singing 8 bars of "Hold me close and tell me how you feel, tell me love is real." And the solo is 8 bars. It's not very interesting, just playing the melody. So it's a verse, the instrumental or that solo, and verse. This song is a skip. Yeah, Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Words of Love, Buddy Holly. Yeah, this is another that was on Beatles For Sale. Track 7, What You're Doing on Beatles 6. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's a Lennon-McCartney tune. Also an AABA song structure. Lead vocals by Paul McCartney. And it's in the key of D major, which is a popular Geddy Lee key to sing in. It's 130 beats per minute in 4/4 time. The verse is 8 bars, plus a bar to make it work. So it's really a 9-bar verse, but he's singing for 8 bars. Look at what you're doing. I'm feeling blue and lonely. And the bridge is 7 bars. I've been waiting here for you, wondering what you're going to do. I mean, it's another boy band song. It's a solo of 8 bars of some plucky George Harrison guitar solo, sort of in that plucky country kind of vein. Verse, verse, bridge, verse, solo. And then they come back to the bridge, and then the verse and the outro, and that's What You're Doing. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's not a great Beatles song. Track 8 is Yes It Is, Lennon-McCartney. Written song, original song, AABA song structure, and it's a John Lennon sung song. Let me rephrase that. It's a John Lennon written song primarily. The lead vocals are by John, Paul, and George, and John sings the bridge solo. But when they're singing in vocal harmonies like this, you're generally hearing John's voice on top. But I mean, you're definitely getting Paul and George into the mix. It's just, it's a John song because you can hear John prominently singing. And then John is singing the bridge solo. And the way the Beatles worked is if you were singing the song, then it's generally your song. The key of E major is the key signature for this one, and it's 132 beats per minute, 4/4. All these songs are in 4/4 time. The verses, if you wear red tonight, remember what I said tonight. It reminds me of a Conor McGregor thing. 8 bars. The verse is 8 bars. The bridge it's short. It's like about 5 bars, maybe. I could be happy with you by my side if I could forget her, but it's my pride. I mean, maybe John's kind of going back down into the dumps again, but which is, kind of the theme on Beatles For Sale. That AABA song structure on this one, the way it looks, is a verse, verse, bridge, verse, bridge, verse. Very simple, but honestly, this track is a skip. There's nothing memorable about it. Track 9 on Beatles 6 is Dizzie Miss Lizzie, 2 minutes and 51 seconds. This is the other Larry Williams song. Lead vocals, of course, by John Lennon, who likes to pull in these Larry songs. By the way, he wants to marry Miss Lizzie. He says so at the end of the song. I listened to Dizzie Miss Lizzie, the Larry Williams version, yesterday. It's not too much different, really. You can't hear the guitar line up front like you can in the Beatles version. That's the biggest difference. The key is the Beatles version is in A major, but guess what? Also, the Larry Williams version is in A major. So same key. They're singing and playing in the same key. It's 130 beats per minute in 4/4 time. The verse is 12 bars. You make me dizzy, Miss Lizzie. The way you rock and roll. So you don't get that guitar line in the Larry Williams version, but it's up front and center after every time John Lennon sings that line in the verse, and there's George Harrison playing that guitar lick. The solo is 12 bars. It's the melody. It's that same melody on the guitar up front, no vocals. So it's just like George is playing that. He's just repeating that for 12 bars. Okay, sort of like in the tempo and the way that John Lennon sings the melody. Dizzie Miss Lizzie is. I don't think this one is an AABA. So just looking at it closely, it's a verse, the solo, and verse, solo, verse. But these solos are really just it's the same music. It's not a separate bridge or a. The music doesn't change at all. Okay. So it's not a AABA, which is verse. Think of it as verse over verse. Track 10 is Tell Me What You See. 2 minutes and 35 seconds. A Lennon-McCartney tune. Let's call this one an AABA song structure for lack of a better classification. It seems to fit. At least I'll tell you so at the end. Tell Me What You See is key of G major. It's 136 beats per minute at 4/4 time. The verse of Tell Me What You See is 16 bars. If you let me take your heart, I will prove to you. It's another one of these boy band love songs. And in the refrain, he's singing, Tell me what you see. And that refrain, it's not... Okay, so here comes the explanation. It's not like a bridge, but it's kind of a bridge. It's like a mini bridge where he sings that line, and then there's an additional 6 bars, so it's like an 8-bar. That refrain is sort of like the bridge. To me, it's an AABA. Then there's no solo. It's just a verse, verse, refrain, verse, refrain, verse. And that's Tell Me What You See. The final track is track 11 for Beatles VI. It's Every Little Thing, 2 minutes and 1 seconds. This is a John Lennon, Paul McCartney song. Also, Yes covered this song on maybe Time in a Word. Or maybe the very first album. To me, the Yes version is the definitive. I know that's backwards, right? Because Yes is covering a Beatles song, but when I hear Every Little Thing, the Beatles version, I think of the Yes version. And when I hear the Yes version, I don't necessarily think of the Beatles version. The Beatles version is in the key of A major, 123 beats per minute and 4/4 time. The verse is 6 bars. When I'm walking beside her. And then the chorus is 8 bars. Every little thing she does for me, yeah. The solo is 6 bars. It's nothing fancy, just doing the melody on lead guitar, really. Sort of like the Larry Williams song, but that's it. It's a verse, chorus, the solo, chorus, outro. Every Little Thing. And Yes really did change it quite a bit, so it doesn't really sound like the Beatles version. Okay, in summary, Beatles VI. The mix. Let's do that first. There isn't a striking difference between the monos and the stereos on this one, like the previous 5 Beatles Capitol Records albums. Especially in the early ones, you can really hear they put a lot of reverb and echo in the stereo mixes. This one's not so shocking or jarring like that. I think you'd agree with me if you listen to just the stereo tracks and the mono tracks end to end. It's not too different. 6 of the 11 songs on this one have AABA structure, where they do that verse bridge thing. Only one of those songs is a cover, and that's Bad Boy. So, the 5 of the songs are Beatles just copying what they like to do. They're singing in a lot of different keys here. C major, D major, G major, and A major, as the Beatles are wont to do. They like to change it up. I think all artists do that a little bit, though. Allmusic.com has this as 3.5 stars. Now, to me, that's too high. Rolling Stone's Record Guide has it as 4 stars. To me, that's way too high. I mean, this is like a 2.5 star, 3 star. If you're a fan of the Beatles, you probably like this. And I'll say it's uneven. Like, some tracks are definitely better than others. Like, I'll put Kansas City. 8 days of a week is okay. Bad Boy. Dizzie Miss Lizzie. That's about it. I mean, it's okay. I ranked this one personally 12 out of the 14 Beatles albums. If you consider the 8 Capitol Records in the USA, plus the other 6 that they released on an Apple, which was the global standard by Revolver. I have this 12 out of 14. To me, it's at the bottom. Okay, it's just too boring. I'm not sure which song to hang my hat on here, other than maybe those I just mentioned. Dizzie Miss Lizzie, Kansas City, 8 days a week. The Beatles' burnout in 1965 is real. You can start to hear it definitely on the other Beatles For Sales tracks, which are on Beatles 65, but they're just really having a hard time keeping up. In the United States, the album sold 899,000 copies by December 31st, 1965. So that's just in a couple months, really, from July to December. They sold 1.1 million copies by the end of the decade. I mean, okay, so it sold a bunch right away, but that's good for only 38th all time for the Beatles. Their other records all did better than this. This one is even behind the early Beatles, if you can believe that, in sales. That's terrible. Okay. I think that's the end for Beatles VI. Next on the channel, I was planning to do King Crimson in the Wake of Poseidon. God, I love that album. That could be next. Or I'm thinking about Chicago 1. I got these now, so I'm really into it, and I could hold off on the Chicago ones, but I guess if you're really dying to hear Chicago, you could put that in the comments or something. But that's a wrap. Get ready for King Crimson in the Wake of Poseidon sometime next week, probably later in the week or middle of the week. I'll post the links to Kansas City, Words of Love, and Dizzie Miss Lizzie, and the other Larry Williams song. I'll put those in the description. And happy Labor Day weekend. I'm out.